Play for you a clip that happened last night on CNN. Maria Cardona is a Democratic partisan. She was on CNN, and she had
Here's what we also have to acknowledge. And I agree that a lot of the college students and the colleges and the leaders did not deal with this as they should have. But we also have to acknowledge, Abby, that the rise of anti-Semitism in the last decade can be correlated with the rise of Donald Trump. And the kind of language that he gives a permission slip for all of this anti-Semitic language to be used, in a way that we really hadn't seen before. The president of the United States, when you have dinner with a neo-Nazi, when you pardon people who are the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, whose groups have an ideology that supports anti-Semitism, when you have anti-Semitic tropes that you traffic in and that you amplify on your own social media, where you have followers of millions of people, you cannot give a pass to the president of the United States with the kind of megaphone that he has and say, oh, he has absolutely nothing to do with this.
Okay. This is where the Democrats are headed. Keith Oberman, I'm not going to play his audio, it was too unhinged, did a rant to his iPhone for social media that Donald Trump was to blame for the attack in Boulder, Colorado. It was actually Joe Biden's administration who allowed that man into the country and allowed him to stay past his visa, allowed him to do all these things, and yet we're supposed to say it's Donald Trump's fault. So here's the thing. I was critical of Trump for a meeting with Nick Fuentes. I was critical of Trump for many things that he did. But, it was Barack Obama who told people to take guns to knife fights. It was Barack Obama who told Hispanic citizens that the Republicans were their enemy. Use the word enemy. It was Barack Obama who told people to get in their neighbors' faces and argue. It was Barack Obama who used the rhetoric of violence, claiming, it's not really violence, it's just words, and then would say, just words, just words. Do we really want to trace the rise of this violence? They always give Barack Obama a pass. I've been critical of Donald Trump on these things with Fuentes and the like, but Donald Trump's not on college campuses encouraging anti-Semitism. That's the left. What about Ilhan Omar? Abby, what's her name, from CNN last night, trying to give her a pass on this, that, she didn't go to these college campuses and say anti-Semitic things. She just joined the protesters. No. She said the anti-Semitic things on Twitter, all about the Benjamins and the like, AOC and the like. They've all said these things, and when you take them into account together, they have been emboldening the left. But here's the thing. What the left wants to argue is that it is Donald Trump's fault, while ignoring and excusing it's the people on their side who are being violent. Max Order at The Spectator has a piece, Leftwing Violence is being normalized. Something has changed in America's psyche. Violence has become more acceptable. It's not just that we've seen 2 attempts and very nearly successful attacks on Donald Trump's life. It's that a worrying number of young Americans cheered on those attempted assassinations and still wish they had succeeded. Since early this year, there's been widespread public support for smashing up Tesla dealerships and for shooting Elon Musk. An unprecedented 10,000 new threats have been made against Senate and congressional members just this year, according to Capitol Police. Applause for the actual murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in December goes on unabated online. His handsome young accused killer, Luigi Mangione, is praised, respected, and even worshipped by a small but growing social media community. Elias Rodriguez, the man accused of killing 2 Israeli embassy officials in Washington on May 21st, had praised Mangione on his social media. Americans always used to prize fighting it out of the ballot box. Now, an apparently psychotic murderer has become a hero for youngsters who imagine he stands for vigilante justice against corporate greed. In early May, a former director of the FBI posed what many observers believe to be a threat to assassinate the president, a picture on Instagram of some shells arranged on the sand to read 8647, along with the caption, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." James Comey insists his post was innocent, yet to 86 someone is slang for get rid of or kill, and 47 is the number of the current presidency. So it's easy to see why Trump-appointed authorities see the matter differently. Serious acts of violence are still mercifully uncommon, but the response to such acts is significant. Surface tremors that signal powerful tectonic shifts in the civic ground on which America has walked confidently for centuries. The United States has been mostly free from large-scale political violence because the country's been graced by the combination of two remarkable gifts: an ingeniously well-designed democratic system and the proliferation of large-scale civic norms. These mean that the U.S. can paradoxically stay permanently in revolution and change without the bloodshed, which has defined so much of world history. It's more than a historic anomaly. It's been an economic and ethical miracle, but it might not last. Over the last decade, the National Contagion Research Institute has assumed that calls for political violence had come from the far right, and they often have. What we never expected to see was the enormous growth in similar calls emerging from the mainstream left. We undertook a nationwide survey to understand it better and discovered that a breathtaking half of those who identified as politically left-wing agreed that the murder of public figures could be at least somewhat justified. What's more, 56% of them agreed that there could be some justification for killing Trump. Just under half agreed that the same could be said about Elon Musk. Tesla dealerships, too, merit at least some destruction, according to 59% of those surveyed. And so we took a deeper dive into the online networks where so many young people spend much of their time today. We found a massive upsurge in coded endorsements of political violence, as Luigi as a code name for executing executives and wealthy individuals, all gamified with Nintendo memes featuring the character Luigi. It's acceptable, it's normalized, and most strangely, it's increasingly being portrayed as fun. It looks like the dissemination of what scholars call permission structures. Think of them as kind of psychological corridors that can lead people, ego and pride intact, toward radically antisocial or even subversive behavior, such as the murder or attempted murder of public officials and corporate executives. What would drive any American to actually support or condone such violence? It's clear the U.S. healthcare system is unequal, unfair, and in need of reform. But never in my life have any of my friends openly said the public execution of C-suite executives might be acceptable course of action. It's not the America I grew up in. This is happening across the left. What happens is when bad things happen on the right, the president gets excoriated. Maria Cardona on CNN lecturing Donald Trump for having met with anti-Semites. That doesn't happen on the left. Ilhan Omar gets excused. AOC gets excused. Alana Presley gets excused. Rashida Tlaib gets excused. Luigi Mangione is put on a pedestal for murdering an executive. Left-wing groups declare Elias Rodriguez is a political prisoner. Notice how quickly the headlines of the newspapers have moved on from the guy in Colorado who firebombed the Jewish Holocaust survivors. Notice how none of the media has covered the DIA employee who was arrested last week trying to give state secrets away because he doesn't like Donald Trump as president. It's not just the Democrats. It is the media, too. The very same media that is now like, oh, my God, it turns out there was a cover-up of Joe Biden is the same media participating in advancing these left-wing ideas. You get license on CNN with Maria Cardona, and then Abby Phillips like, I can't believe you would suggest Ilhan Omar said anti-Semitic things. The bubble in which these people is going to get more people murdered. And they don't care. And that's the thing you've got to understand is they don't really care about it. They're okay with the murders because they think it's good. It's like the left-wing environmentalists. They can do everything right, but as long as you mouth breathers with your 5 kids and SUV are out there, we're all going to burn. They're perfectly happy if you get punished or even if you get killed. It's good for the environment if you die. You turn to compost and stop putting out carbon emissions with your wood-burning smoker in your SUV. These people are turning dangerous. The response from the right cannot be to turn dangerous as well. There are some on the right. Some of them profess Christ on their lips, but want a Christless Christianity. They want to reciprocate. Here's why you can't reciprocate, because if you do, you alienate all the voters who can keep you in power. At some point, the majority of Americans, they're not going to turn violent, but they're going to sit back. You want them on your side. And the way you get them on your side is by showing you're not the left. You condemn the left. You highlight the violence of the left. You protect against the violence of the left, but you yourself don't turn violent against the left. Dylan Roof in Charleston, South Carolina, wanted a race war. He didn't get what he wanted. Increasingly, these anti-Semites from the left, they want an ethnic cleansing of Jews. And the left is increasingly giving them what they wanted. It's notable that these right-wing white supremacists, as the left would define them, they didn't join in what Dylan Roof did after the murders in South Carolina. But you're seeing an increasing number of progressive anti-Semites join in the killing. And you're seeing an increasing number of voices in the media trying to excuse them, say, oh, but Trump, but January 6th. Don't give in to it on the right. There are growing voices on the right who want you to give in to it. Because here's the dirty little secret. There's an undercurrent between the far left and the far right. They want the end of the United States as we know it, and they think they can fight over it, and both of them think they're in the majority, and both of them think they can rewrite the American Constitution in their own image, and they're increasingly vocal on both sides about it. There's a big piece in the New Yorker, not my preferred magazine, but it's about some guy named Yarvin out in San Francisco. He's got the ear of the vice president and others. The guy's a nut job who got bullied in high school and now wants a monarchy in the United States and actually is advocating for ideas that are being picked up by people on the right to abolish the bureaucracy in the United States and upend the American Constitution, all in the long game of putting a dictator in charge. The guy's an atheist. He's trying to use Christ-like rhetoric to lure Christians into a demented view of the United States because he got swirlied in high school. We are allowing the worst elements of both sides to chart the course of this country. It's going to be necessary for sane people to take it back. The problem is that on the right, you have a lot of sane people who are grounded in faith. And on the left, you have growing secularism and atheism, which is a breeding ground for violence. It's not a secret. It's not some sort of surprise that the most violent murderous regimes on planet Earth were those that were unmoored from religion. The Nazis and the communists, Pol Pot, Mao, Hitler, Stalin, they didn't have God in their heart at all. And I would note that those who did have God in their heart beat them all. You cannot reciprocate violence with violence. What you must do is ostracize it, oust it, purge it, identify it, shun it, vilify it. The problem we have is that too many members of the media are on their side right now. And it will take lots more of us on our side standing up and not only condemning it, but pointing out to the American public the left has turned violent. And those people who may not be with us ideologically will be with us to protect themselves because they will not want to put violent anti-Semites in charge. There's no eye for an eye here. There's no reciprocity here. There's no becoming like the left. You become like the left, you become the left. Instead, we must ruthlessly and regularly point out how violent the left is becoming. We should support self-defense. We should support law and order. In the 1960s and 70s, the left fell out of power at a time they could have been dominant because of the fall of Richard Nixon, and they did so because in the 70s they turned violent. And the right's response was not to turn violent against them. It was to turn to law and order and crack down. And guess what? We got Dan Bongino and Kash Patel at the FBI. We've got Pete Hegseth in the Defense Department. We've got Pam Bondi in the DOJ. We can crack down with law and order, not respond to violence with violence. We can impose law and order and tell the American people we will keep you safe from these nut jobs on the left. That should be our response.